Like every being, he was born alone and will die alone. Though he recognizes it is incumbent upon him to develop relationships with others in the world and to ensure his existence benefits mankind, he never once forgets that he is the sole captain of his fate, the single entity responsible for steering the course of his own life. For where a man fails to establish a life mission, the world will waste no time in assigning him one. This he considers as one of the greatest tragedies affecting so many, that they are living a life that they had no hand in prescribing, failing to realize their true purpose. On a daily basis, he envisions himself at death's door, asking the question, did I live the life I was meant to live? Or, out of fear, did I live the life of somebody else? And so he has moved through the world, not as a lonely, aimless drifter, but as a traveler, comfortable in his natural aloneness, following the call of his purpose. But how can one know if they are truly following their calling? That's simple enough, the man tells us. One's purpose must first be established, though that's by no means an easy undertaking. Establishing one's purpose requires frequent experimentation, a willingness to undergo repeat trial and error, and an endless journey into ourselves to better understand our soul's code. This last one is especially important, for the truth is that everything we need is already within us. The subject of our interview is a self-described modern warrior who goes on to tell us that for him, the way to his purpose and self-actualization was in adopting the principles of the ancient warrior and freeing himself from the currents of mainstream society. Why did you leave behind mainstream society? We ask him. Simply because modern society couldn't provide the answers I sought, he replies. You have to understand, modern man is encouraged to embrace his softer feminine side at the expense of his masculine. Yet this creates a conflict within, an act of self-harm that can even lead to external acts of violence if left unchecked. I was once such an individual, an average man, following the confused messaging of the modern era and struggling with internal conflict. At some point, that conflict became unbearable, and I had no choice but to make a change. I understood that by following certain principles, instead of demonizing my inherent masculine qualities, I could teach myself to channel them into a positive expression. One such demonized masculine trait is aggression. We are repeatedly taught the lesson that aggression is an abhorrent, undesirable quality, and the driving force behind acts of war and unprovoked violence. But this is a dreadful misunderstanding, for I guarantee in a life or death situation, in the possibility you have to defend yourself or your loved ones from danger, you will welcome your own aggression with open arms. Furthermore, unpopular as it can be to bring up, there is undoubtedly an element of competition in life, and only he who is able to channel his aggression is able to outperform his competitors and succeed in accomplishing his goals. Understand that aggression itself is a neutral power. Whether or not it produces positive or negative effects in a man's life depends on how well he is able to harness such power. The man who has no control is like a bull in a china shop. He destroys everything he touches. Unable to stop himself from picking fights with people, many of his personal relationships suffer. His direct opposite, however, the stereotypical Mr. Nice Guy, has just as many problems. This is a man who suppresses his aggression to such an extreme that it becomes internalized. He consistently fails to go after what he really wants, to set appropriate boundaries, or even defend himself. As a result, he is left seething inside. A middle way must therefore be established. You must not allow your emotionality to dictate who you pick fights with, but neither must you let yourself be walked over. A man must make space for others, but never be agreeable to such an extent that he betrays himself. It is your responsibility to communicate your boundaries and protect them where necessary. But how can a man discover what his boundaries are? We ask. A warrior collects many scars during his training, he replies. The world is unkind, and nobody escapes unmarked. As traumatic as life is, it is also your greatest teacher. All of your past experiences have been your dojo, your training ground. Many of us often come to know our boundaries only where they had not been established in the first place, where somebody or something had crossed the line. A past relationship might have been a living hell, but it teaches us what to avoid in the future. At least, that's if we're paying close enough attention to the lesson. You might have noticed that we often seem to run through the same patterns, often attracting the same situations and relationships. When this happens, it's a clear sign we're missing something. We're overlooking the fact that we too play a role in such circumstances, and we need to take a long, hard look at our own behavior and contribution. Once we're able to do that, we're then able to modify our behavior and establish firm boundaries to prevent such situations from occurring in the future. We're not so dissimilar from children in this. The child learns not to put his hand on the hot stove through the pain it causes, and learns how to walk through first falling 100 times. It takes many attempts before he discovers the correct distribution of weight necessary to move about on his own two legs. As disheartening as it is to repeatedly fail, it is the only way. You are going to make a multitude of errors in your lifetime, far too many to count, and all of them necessary. I say this only to underline a most important point, that the warrior learns from his past, but does not linger on it. What's done is done. If you are able to reflect on how you would have done things differently, then be grateful, for it is a sure sign you have grown. Never allow your heart to give in to regret. Instead, honor your present and move on. There is another thing we also consider when it comes to setting boundaries. While our history informs our boundaries, so too does our forward direction. The future we are striving towards determines our core values, which in turn must be reflected by our boundaries. Of course, we can only know the aim of our future when we have a good handle on our life mission. The man whispers to us conspiratorially, "It takes time to find our mission in life, but there are many things one can do to accelerate the process." A fantastic resource is Course Careers. They're an online platform dedicated to landing you with your perfect career. There's no previous experience or degree necessary, and you can go through a wide selection of affordable courses at a pace that suits your lifestyle. They provide students with insider knowledge of how to create the perfect resumes, how to send in winning applications, and nail the interview process. I can't recommend them enough. Check out the link below. So, we ask him, "You were going to tell us about how we might know our purpose." "That's correct," the man nods. "We arrive to a clearer vision of our purpose through our own experience. Experiential knowledge is the highest form. The man who relies on his own experience has no lord or master. He is not beholden to the theories or dogma of other men. He places the largest stake in the knowledge he has won through his own experience. He understands that as rich as the world is with various schools of wisdom, everything he seeks is inside of himself. There is no greater guide to his path than his own intuition. Coming to know oneself is the only route to knowing one's calling. Practically speaking, this involves quieting the mind and dedicating oneself to practices like meditation. Meditation is not the practice of not thinking, as so commonly misunderstood, but simply becoming the observer to thoughts. Thoughts are just like the passing clouds in the sky. They come and they go, but they are not you. You are instead that vast expanse of sky, sometimes clear, sometimes clouded, but beyond such distinctions. The man who is able to watch his mind as an impartial witness is also to move through the external world, embodied but not attached, present but without baggage. This clarity of mind allows him to move lightly and with great flexibility, never allowing himself to get stuck in any lasting idea that doesn't serve him. Without attachments, he allows himself to consistently evolve. It is akin to a warrior finessing his skill. Just as there is no endpoint to the refinement of his martial art, there is no endpoint to our continuing evolution as an individual. But we need spaciousness and insight in order for this to happen. The deeper we go inwards and understand the machinations of our mind, the more clarity we gain of our underlying motivations. We often misidentify the true reasons behind our actions and engage in behaviors driven by unknown intentions. In time, the more we come to know ourselves, the greater our perception of the machinery working behind the scenes. When we perceive such machinery, we can then identify where we are acting in ways that don't serve us and align our actions to that of the person we want to be. Think of all the men out there chasing women and calling it love, in outright denial that lust is puppeteering them. Think of the millions running the hamster wheel of accumulating money and material possessions, failing to recognize they are not running towards freedom, but away from their fear, whether that be a fear of insecurity or destitution or of never having enough, or of never being enough. It is not that romantic relationships or making money are problems in themselves, but why we are doing something is everything. If fear is our engine, we can never hope to find peace or contentment in life. And many fears, when you boil them down, are related to our primitive fear of death. The man pauses for a moment and points to the wall behind us. We turn and find a message written there. It reads, "You are going to die." The man laughs at the look of surprise on our faces and explains, "I remind myself every morning that I am going to die, that this is not the dress rehearsal, this is the show itself. Once the curtain falls, that's it. You're done, and it could happen at any instant. All men know they must die, but never the hour. Yet most live as if they're oblivious to the fact. They delay their aspirations and dreams, waiting for some magical point in the future when they're ready, and most expire on their deathbeds, wishing they'd had the courage to go after them. This is the real death, to already have died in life. Make a promise to yourself not to join this long line of fools. Recognize that life's intrinsic value is precisely because everything is perishing right before our eyes. Nothing is permanent. The greatest warriors accept the ever-presence of death, and it is precisely this reverence that enables them to reach mastery in the arena of life. I will say no more. Simply contemplate death each day, and you will see for yourself how it transforms your lives. Thank you for watching. Here at Wise Clarity, we are dedicated to improving the lives, perspectives, and knowledge of men online. If you enjoyed this video, please do like, subscribe, and share. What do you think makes a modern warrior? Are there any things we missed? Make sure to leave a comment and let us know below. See you next time.